welcome everyone to Sunday Sentiments.
Of course, this is a hate crime.
And if she's found guilty, then she has to face the consequences.
They normally end up killing some particular kinds of people.
It's a violation of human rights.
That's a very traumatic event.
So I just wanted to ask the panel about their own opinions on this topic.
Hello everyone and welcome to Sunday Sentiments. Sunday Sentiments is a segment on our channel where a panel comes together and discusses current events and hot topics from all over the world. Just please be aware that the views shared on this panel do not reflect the views of Four Wings as a company, as an organization. These are everybody's personal opinions. The first topic of today is about the Benin Bronzes that were recently returned to their countries of origin. Cambridge University, as well as the German government, have agreed to safely return the Benin Bronzes, though others have, I just expressed it as been feeling much more entitled, like the British Museum in London, that are saying that they don't have a problem sharing the bronzes, but that they won't be returning the stolen artifacts to the countries of which they came from. They've just been saying that they just want to lend them to Nigeria, and I don't remember the other country that used to be a part of the Benin, like the Benin Empire.
It's Senegal.
Senegal then, but they've just been agreeing to lend them once in a while, as if like a library, you just give them out and then you come back with them as if they owned them in the first place. And I just wanted to hear everybody's opinions on that, because it's quite upsetting to me. All right. Does anybody have any thing, like an opinion that they want to share on this? Shiko? Wait, Shiro. Sorry, Shiro.
Personally, I think the artifacts should be returned to Africa. They belong to Africa and they were stolen. And the colonialists stole a lot of resources, which now we know they cannot return. But those ones can be returned, so they should be returned.
I completely agree with you. There's quite literally no reason that they should be keeping them in the first place, because, you know, it's not theirs. It was literally stolen in a raid of the royal family, of the Benin people. Like, how does that make any sense? And they're saying that some people are saying that they're more safe in these European museums than they are in the countries of which they came from. So that's why they feel that they should stay in these European countries. In the video that was sent into the group chat, which we'll probably end up highlighting later, a representative, I think he was from Cambridge University, said that it should be equal. Like, all the people who had their, you know, history and their riches stolen from by the Nazis, all of that was returned. Why does it have to be different when it comes to, you know, a different continent? Just, how does that make any sense? Both people suffered from people coming in and pillaging and taking all of their stuff and riches.
Okay, let me say my piece. What I wanted to say is that the same country is owed. France holds 90,000 artifacts from Benin. They're held by several institutions in France, and their plans, as far as I know so far, was to return 26 artifacts. So that begs the question, why do they feel entitled to this? I read somewhere somebody giving the reason that they are safer if they are kept in these European institutions and they'll be preserved. And I'm surprised that Shiro didn't give that point, because I know her views on different things regarding Africa.
I don't know what you mean by different views, but
I know she would be of the opinion that they'd be kept safer. I'm surprised she didn't say that.
Oh,
I was going to say something, Keshi.
Yes.
Let's just go in the order. So Shiko, Catherine, then Shiro.
Well, I'm of the opinion that they should absolutely be returned.
I don't see, any Western power agreeing to its artifacts being held by another country. And it's actually, oh, Keshi has her hand up, you can dispute. But anyway, even if they did, that is their choice. I think they should absolutely be returned, and if they are to be kept safe, because I do agree they could also just end up in the hands of corrupt leaders and be sold off for, pence or pennies, then they should be lent, not the other way around, not the British or American or French museums saying that they're lending them to Africa or South America, but instead it should be the African governments lending them to the museums in the West, and they could actually, pay towards it or something like that. I just don't think they should be owned by Western former colonial state. What am I saying? Yeah, powers.
I can see the agreements in that. Like personally, I think that they should like it's hard to say that you should keep all the artifacts in the countries that they came from, because not everybody is able to travel to these countries to see these artifacts that they're like fascinated by. So I understand all of these international museums like sending them, like if they have like an exhibition in London about like ancient Egypt that the Egyptians sent it over there, and like sending it back and forth so people from all over the world can see it. But to keep it in one place and say that, oh, you can't see it though, you can't have your history back, doesn't make any sense to me at all, because it's literally just keeping stolen goods. Doesn't matter how long it's been, it's still stolen. Shira, Catherine, and then Baril.
I'm responding to Keshi, what he said. Yeah, I do think, and I think Shiko touched on it, that there's a very big likelihood of them not being safe in some African countries. But if they belong to Africa, there should be some sort of negotiation. Maybe they talk with the countries and see if they can be loaned to, they can have them on loan in London or wherever. They pay the African governments a big sum of money every year to keep them. I think the African countries may be agreeable to that, but I don't believe that it's good to just say that they'll not be safe in all African countries. In Nairobi, we have a very big national museum that is the custodian of the fossils that were discovered in northern Kenya, and they are kept very well. And we also have a big African art collection at the National Archives. They're all very well preserved, and I believe if they were in Kenya, they'd be safe.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't think that all African countries. Sorry?
We are agreeing with you.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who has visited Kenya and has been to the museum can testify to that.
And I want to say that that reasoning that the Africans cannot keep those artifacts safe is very paternalistic, and actually colonialistic mentality, where you think you're the only ones who can keep things safe, and therefore you will keep them. That's, yeah.
All right, thank you both, Shira and Keshi, for your opinions. I definitely agree that it is it has to do with that mindset, the colonial mindset, that they think that all these Africans are too primitive to keep their own stuff safe, when they kept it safe until you invaded their country. That's it. Catherine, Baril, and then Mill.
Yeah, I mean, on that point, it's also a bit of a pretend argument, because there is a huge discussion between Britain and Greece about the tiles of the Pantheon, and I don't think Greece would have a huge problem of keeping it safe. And even inside the same country, in the US, I think in 1990, finally the Congress passed an act to give back artifacts to the Native Americans. And while this thing is not perfect, this act, it just shows the enormity of the problem. I always like to bring in some statistics. So after the act was passed, they gave, I mean, it was more about giving back sort of to tribes and lineal descendants, because they had a lot of ancestral remains. So they gave back 1.7 million grave goods, 57,000 skeletons, and 15,000 sacred objects. I mean, I'm just bringing these numbers to show the enormity. And in regards to Africa, it's estimated that 90% of sub-Saharan artifacts are outside Africa. 90%. How are we expecting these countries also to develop their national identity without being able to see their own cultural history exhibits? So for me, the answer is clear. The reason is, of course, Western museums are frightened to be emptied and cleared out. But when you think of the enormity, I'm sure there are systems of ways, so we don't have to empty out museums, but find a way of sharing this cultural heritage between Europe and Africa, and finding a way of working with countries that struggle to set up the museums in the proper way. And where we have items on loan in Western Europe, I'm sure we can pay a commission like it's normally done when the museums share their artifacts. So that was me. I just wanted to sort of make sure we understand the enormity and the possibilities through this enormity.
Yes, thank you, Catherine. You do have a point that there is like a possibility of also helping these countries out financially with like giving back their artifacts and their history. Beryl and then Shamila.
I just wanted to say something between Shakira and Catherine, that it's hugely important to keep the libraries, the cultural heritage and the artifacts to create your own identity. Once that they are not there, you cannot feel belonged, and if you don't know your history very well, how it created and it arrived to this point. I just thought something similar to Shakira in the point that it can stay like landed to European countries, European museums, to have like a not promotion, but to, of course, also to teach other people about African history. I agree that some of the artifact has to be exhibited in some other countries to show up, to teach also, but not like that they have own their things and then they lend to the African people, but African countries has to land deciding on what to exhibit in the European museums. Maybe I was thinking in this way.
It is a very good point. They should still be given the liberty to be able to choose where they want these things displayed, who they want to have these back and forth transactions, well, lendings of their own cultural art pieces with. It makes a lot of sense. Like they've had that, a lot of these people whose culture has been stolen, they've had their choices stolen away for so many years. At least this is like the bare minimum, them being able to say which country should be like, where their own artifacts should be able to be stored and who should be able to display them. Jamila?
Yeah, so my point is that I feel like Western countries have like this God complex, hero complex, savior. Like when they're explaining things, it sounds very condescending and like in a way of like, you don't understand. We're doing this for your good, like for you. And it's like, I don't even like want to hear something like that. You don't even want to hear their point of view. And I also like don't understand this whole like we want them in our museums. I'm like, if you want them in your museums, how about you tell the truth about how you got them in the museum? How about you write how they're all blood diamonds and all the oil and stuff like that, all the artifacts that you've stolen. You didn't go in there and ask them nicely, can we have them? You probably killed a lot of people to have them. So don't be fake with the way that you've put them in your museums. Write the actual truth, and maybe people won't be like as angry because you're acting like you saved these artifacts, but really you stole them, and a lot of blood was spilled for a lot of them.
Thank you, Mil. You are summarizing all of my feelings right now in this one specific response. Just to make a point, after Shiko and Keshi have spoken, I actually have another little tidbit to put in about blood diamonds and how people like to portray that they were given freely. Shiko and then Keshi and then to the other point.
Yeah, at some points I wanted to give Jamila summarized really well. That sense of entitlement to other people's cultures is just ridiculous. And also, yeah, Shiro, you also made a good point. Like, why should they assume that we cannot take care of our own collections? And they seem to have been doing quite well before they came and took them away anyway. And also, you also brought out the fact I really love about our National Museum in Kenya, and other places where artifacts are stored, and they're being looked after, and they're there for people to access. So I agree with all those points. I also wanted to say, I read that the Dutch have agreed that they'll return all their artifacts, and the Minister of Cultural Affairs, I think he said, there is no place for stolen goods in a national collection. No government should think it's okay to have stolen goods in their collection of artifacts in museums. And I think that's just a starting point. Italy and Norway have also returned some things recently. I don't know why the UK is so hung up on keeping things that were acquired actually in some instances very violently. Yeah, it just leaves a sour taste in the mouth. And plus, many school kids don't even know how these things happen to be in their museums. So that's another good point, Jamila. And thank you for summarizing a lot of good points in your comments.
Yes, thank you, Shiko. Keshi had a point, and then we'll be adding once something else.
Yes. I wanted to also agree with Catherine when she talked about the Elgin marbles, that the Greek Elgin marbles, they're actually Greek marbles that the British have refused to return. So they apparently have a pattern of refusing to return things they have removed forcefully and claiming them. But what I wanted to say is that the German government, when they agreed to return these artifacts, they said they were doing it from a sense of moral responsibility. That, like somebody said, there is no place for stolen goods in a national collection. At the same time, Shakira, you pointed out a good point made by one of those museum directors who said, if we are so ready to return things that were stolen during the Holocaust, and they make it a point to actually go after those things and return them to the rightful owners, why is there a shyness in returning things that have been stolen from Africans? There should be fairness. Stolen goods are stolen goods. And another point I wanted to bring out is some people who own these artifacts say that they have acquired them, they bought them. They have acquired them legally, they were bought, and therefore returning them would bring a lot of legal problems and so on. So yeah, they bought them. I don't know what you others have to say when you hear such an explanation that they were bought and legally, and therefore why should they be returned?
I would just like to add in that who were they bought from? That's the question, because they like to say this, like, oh yes, I bought it legally, but who did you buy from? Like the other people who stole it first and then you bought it from them. Like either way, there's still blood spilled on these artifacts. Is literally they just don't care because it wasn't people who look like them that had suffered for these goods to be stolen and really just preserved in these museums. Absolutely not. Jamila?
Yeah, I was just gonna, talk about what Keshi said before, like the whole thing of like, it's a different thing for another group of people. I think that they do not, and I don't think they've ever seen the continent of Africa or the people of Africa as human beings, like ever. That explains, the slave trade, all of that stuff. They've never respected that continent in any sort of way. It's not their own people. So when something happens to them, they're not racing. And I feel like with the UK, I don't know if I should say this, but with the UK, it feels like when they're doing things, like for example, for the Holocaust and stuff, I never know, like it never feels genuine to me, especially the leaders. It feels like something that they're doing so then it can be seen as, yeah, Britain helped with this, they did this. It's like America when they joined in on the war. They're like, yeah, we did, but you did nothing, you contributed nothing, and the people still suffered. So it's like, it's more like a a showing that I did this, they didn't, and we're better. That's what I feel like it is with Britain. So, and they don't respect the continent of Africa in that way. They don't believe that they need to use their energy to make themselves look like the best, the good guys who do everything better than everyone in the world, Great Britain or whatever. So yeah, that's my opinion on why they just don't seem to respect.
I just also wanted to add on to that, saying that I feel like the reason that people also have a lot of focus on the Holocaust was also because it was the first, like, they literally had footage, like they filmed everything happening through. It was this was the first time that it was possible to show people images of what was actually happening. They don't really care about Africans and the slave trade because they never actually heard the true horrors. Everything they hear in school is the sugar-coated, just barely grazing the surface version, when they never actually hear the actual grotesque things that happen, and they never actually saw physical evidence of it like they did in the Holocaust.
Even some of the people that they idolize, they don't realize that they were nasty human beings in the past. That's what happened when people were pulling down the statues. They were trying to highlight the fact that you've glorified them in a statue, saying that they're the best people, but they actually did one of the worst things that a human could possibly do. So they don't respect Africa and Africans.
They really don't. Now, I just had another little tidbit to add to this whole discussion about treasures being stolen, stuff like that. That people have also been calling for the return of other valuables, such as I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but the Koh-i-Noor diamond from India. A solicitor from 2016, who by his name sounded like he might be Indian as well, said that the diamond was given freely and that it was given to the British government. So that's why it shouldn't be returned. It's not a blood diamond or anything like that. But when I actually read up on it, the person who gave it freely was the last Maharaja of the Sikh Empire, which, like, a leader of the Sikh Empire. He was the last one. He was 11 years old, the leader, 11. And they made him give this huge diamond. It's a big diamond that she has in one of her crowns that she wears for, like, very important ceremonial public ceremonies and stuff like that. And he was forced to give it after months of pressure from the British Empire, after they had literally just been at war with them. So he was forced to give it publicly to Queen Victoria and then sign a formal act of submission, as well as handing over a lot of other priceless items. But now the British Empire, not the British Empire, the British government doesn't want to give it back because they like to claim that, oh, but it was given freely. See, it was like we had a really good relationship with the country of India. Like, clearly didn't, because you forced these people to do it. And he wasn't even that. He was like the face of the Sikh Empire. He wasn't actually ruling. That was his mother, because he was literally 11 years old. And then when you read the rest of the story about him, they like to glamorize, oh, but he was taken in by the British people, became really good friends with Queen Victoria. Like to say there's a lot about a lot of Indian people who were exiled and then sent to England after the British Empire took over India as a whole, stole their pearls and stole their jewels and stuff like that, and display it now as if it was a very good relationship that they had with India throughout all these years. It was a colony, nothing else, a colony. Sorry, I went on a bit of a rant there. Jamila, do you still have a point to make, or is your hand just still up?
Sorry, my hand's still up.
All right, thank you.
I agree with what Shakira said, that they're trying to make something for what it was not. There was no love between the British Empire and its colony. they were just using these people to enrich the British Empire, and they should actually return all those artifacts, is that the word, where it rightfully belongs. It does not belong to the people who had them in captivity, so to speak. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you, Kiriko, for your point. Quite summarized that little point about India that we put in. But thank you everyone for watching this Sunday Sentiments video. Please like and subscribe and click the little notification bell to know when we post any more videos. Thank you.